McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Wednesdays, let me set the intention for today's program and invite you to be a part of this on an ongoing basis. On Wednesdays, we want to talk about economic development, about wealth creation, about how we change the vocabulary, the idea, I call it, how do we build a public mind in our community about wealth creation, about wealth, about building, producing, about serving our interests and doing it with a sense of purpose and profit? How do we demystify profit making and elevate the awareness and the ability and the desire to engage in problem solving and using problem solving as a tool for personal, family, community, individual revenue and personal development for business creation? You know, it seems to me that too often our communities are described through a deficit lens. I'm wondering what it takes for us to shift our analysis, our approach, the way we assemble those things we talk about from a deficit point of view, and shift them into an analysis that sees problems, but also that sees us, our people, as problem solvers, and sees problem solving as the core foundational work of building wealth in our community. Well, it's going to be a great conversation today because I'm going to talk with one of the people who knows about community development, about economic development, and that's Warren McLean. He's president of Northside Economic Opportunity Network. It's called NEON, but he's got a 30-year history in doing development work. We'll have a great conversation in a few minutes. Well, before we start, as always, I want to thank you for watching, signing in wherever you are. As you know, we stream this program on 6 different platforms, 2 YouTube platforms. We're streaming at the YouTube channel of the Black Press of America, Black Press USA. We're streaming from the Insight News YouTube channel, Insight News MN. We also are streaming from the Black Press USA Facebook page, from the Insight News Facebook page, and from Al McFarlane Facebook page. In addition, we're reaching people through LinkedIn and reaching people through Twitter. However you're connecting, we want to know that you're there. Take a second and shout us out. Tell us who you are, where you are. Say hi to our guests. Say hi to other people that are watching, listening. And if you have a question, drop that question in the comment section and be a part of this. Also, if you have ideas, people that we should be talking to, connecting with, anywhere in the world, we want to be that connection for you. We think that the solutions that we're bringing in terms of conversation are, in fact, both local and global. The principles, the processes, the opportunities are the same, and they are grand and they are rich. And I think that as a people, and at this time, we are moving into an arena of excitement and of possibility. Well, I also want to thank our friends over at Minnesota Department of Health. We're partnering with them to encourage people to stay aware, to remember that the risk for COVID-19 still exists. If you watch the news today, you'll see that COVID cases are on the increase again throughout the country. So it means we've got to pay attention. We need to follow the COVID-19 protocols, washing your hands, staying aware, prioritizing prevention in everything you do. And, just remember that together we can create awareness, we can encourage testing, and we can help everybody stay healthy. So with that, enjoy well, stay well, be healthy. And again, thank you, and thanks to our friends over at the Minnesota Department of Health. Well, let me bring in my guest today, and that's Warren McLean. And as I mentioned, Warren McLean leads an organization in North Minneapolis called NEON. NEON stands for Northside Economic Opportunity Network. But Warren McLean and I go back a generation because I first met and worked with Warren a dozen or 24 years ago when he was a CEO at META, which is now based in North Minneapolis. All that says that Warren has been on the front line of building an awareness about entrepreneurship, helping individual specific businesses go into business, go to scale, assess the marketplace, assess the opportunity, and make the moves to build opportunity for themselves, their employees, their families, our community. And he's still doing that work over at Neon today. Warren, so good to see you. Thank you for joining the conversation with Al McFarlane. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Al. Thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. Great to see you again. Great to connect with you again. And thank you for your work that you do in the community as you elevate our community. I think your work is so important for us to, to be a voice to
Yeah.
the entire community about the work that's being done in not only North Minneapolis, but in the Twin Cities overall.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's exactly why we're here, is to elevate the voices. And I think I want to just keep saying how important it is, the work that you're doing over at Neon. And before we go any further, I want to take a minute to let people know you've got a major event coming up at the end of the month called, well, you tell me, you invite people to the event for your conversations series.
Sure. So we have something called a community conversation series. This is 4.0, which means this is the fourth year we've done it. This time, and this particular event will feature black high tech entrepreneurs. That will feature Dr. Tim Childs, who's the founder and CEO of TLC, Provision Way for Technology. Wendell Maddox, who is the president of Ion Corporation, and Sharon Kennedy Vickers, who's the CEO of Software for Good. So we're looking forward to that conversation. We'll be elevating these folks, and they'll be sharing with the audience some of the tremendous work that they're doing. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular, and I mean, it's leading edge in technology. So
Well,
it's huge.
I'm so excited that you're doing this, and it's rare to have an A team like this in one setting to share knowledge, experience. And I wanted to, Warren, if you don't mind, take a minute and have you talk about these stellar speakers. Tim Childs, amazing story, amazing work. Warren Maddox, not Warren Maddox, but
Wendell.
Brother Wendell Maddox, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Phenomenal work with Eon,
yeah.
and what Sharon Vickers Johnson is doing in tech. Again, amazing. Take a minute, if you don't mind, and,
Sure.
and tell their stories and why it's important for us to start to elevate, to listen, and to be motivated by what they're doing.
Okay, so I'll start with Tim. I've known Tim for, since my days at Meta. He had a company called, as it's still called, TLC, Precision Way for Technology. And at that time, he was dealing with gallium arsenide wafers. So, but Tim is he's a graduate of an HBCU, Florida A&M. But he's also a graduate of Stanford. He's got a PhD in physics. And so Tim has gotten multiple patents, been awarded, been to the White House several times of the various presidents to receive those awards. His work is extraordinary, and when he shares what he will, what his current company is doing, it's really so leading edge. I mean, it's he has a product that can detect contraband without anybody knowing it, and I mean, it's just a phenomenal product. Um, I can't say enough about that.
And
Uh,
he's done a lot of Defense Department leading edge technology work. That's what I do know about him.
yes,
He's a specialist.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. He has done a lot of Defense Department stuff with various countries actually as well too. They've been invited to see. I mean, he's visited, by major companies, major governments who've asked him to come and share
And
his
Warren, you
knowledge.
know what? Let me tell you this as an aside. This is a few years back, but I walked into Cub Foods over in North Minneapolis. I think it was Cub Foods, or it might have been it was Cub Foods. And Warren was not Warren, but Tim was sitting at a table in the entryway of the grocery store, recruiting kids and telling them about science and technology. And so here's a guy that's dealing with the global,
Yeah,
advancement of science, of knowledge, but he's taking the time to go to a neighborhood grocery store and sit at a folding table and invite kids to know about, learn about, elevate their experience, and to understand the power of the future that technology can provide. That was amazing. So just that
That's
aside,
that's fabulous.
that's
And
the guy I know.
yeah, he has a foundation, in fact, where he provides scholarships for kids for education in STEM, I think. Um, and then Wendell, I've known Wendell for, again, same about 30 years or so. Wendell has been a government contractor for a number of years in technology. I know he's been a supplier to Boeing and others. Uh, Wendell has the vision to put a man on Mars.
What? What?
Yeah, I'm not talking about the moon, on Mars.
Mars. Okay.
So I'll let Wendell talk more about that. But Wendell has been around for a number of years. He's been very successful. He is actually going to relocate a portion of his company into North Minneapolis intentionally. He's going to provide jobs and so forth, and he's in the process of doing that, which is phenomenal. And he's homegrown. He grew up in North Minneapolis. Um, he's from the community, and he's committed to the work here in the community. So, um, to be quite honest, I know less about Sharon. I just met her. I haven't even met her yet, actually, but I know about her, and I know that she's a leader in AI,
Mhm.
and so she can talk about what's happening in AI, on how we can use that not in an offensive way, but how we can be offensive about it, using it in a way that promotes our community, that we can take advantage of it and actually benefit from it. So we're excited about all three of them. Actually, tomorrow we're going to have a short conversation to talk about what we're going to talk about on the 30th. But those are the things that we're looking forward to
That's
with
going to be
respect
a
to each one.
great program. I'm so glad you're
Oh
doing
yeah.
that, and I'm so glad to hear about all of the knowledge they represent, and that we'll be learning about through the conversation. Well, listen, let's take a step back then and talk about
Okay.
Neon 101. Let
Okay.
our viewers and listeners know what Neon is, what the value proposition is, what the vision is.
Well, our mission is to build wealth for low to moderate income entrepreneurs in North Minneapolis and the surrounding community. And our vision is to transform North Minneapolis into a prosperous, visible, sustainable, and highly diverse multicultural community of entrepreneurs. And then our values are to deliver the best customer service in the world, the relentless pursuit of excellence, and respect for the individual. And we repeat those values at every staff meeting, which we hold twice a week. So, Neon, the entry point
Okay,
into
hold on,
Neon.
hold on, hold on.
Okay.
You said a mouthful. Let's repeat them one more time right here, and take your time on each one because that's a whole bunch. So go through that again.
Which part?
All of it. The mission,
Okay.
the vision. I think
Well, the
it's
mission is to build wealth for low to
mhm,
moderate income entrepreneurs in North Minneapolis. So we're not interested in just income. We're interested in building wealth,
mm,
and wealth is it's sustainable. It's something that we have as a serious objective, and that's what all of our attention is focused on, is building wealth
mhm,
and teaching, and I should share with entrepreneurs how to do that on a long-term basis. And then we have some specific examples of entrepreneurs who are, taking that path and really embracing that. And so we're really excited about that. The vision is to transform North Minneapolis, and we can't do that alone. But we want to transform it. We don't want to. We don't see it. We're not looking forward to rejuvenation. We're not looking forward to just what has been in the past. But the attitudes, the vision is transformation. As you know, that word is typically applied to it means metamorphosis in the Greek. And that's the term that we use, and that's another word for it. But you look at a caterpillar being turned into a butterfly, and
mhm,
so obviously a caterpillar is not an appealing insect, but a butterfly is.
mhm,
We see that potential right here in North Minneapolis, that we have a butterfly uh, in this particular community. We have great, I think, talent that needs to be unleashed and it needs to be supported, but it is here. And I think that once that talent is provided the proper resources and the proper encouragement, that this community will indeed be transformed. It's actually going through a transformation right now. We have, the largest amount of investments that's ever been made in North Minneapolis. well over $100 million is coming into the community. A lot of it, most of it is by Black entrepreneurs that they're intentionally investing in North Minneapolis. We got the 927 building, right, which is right across the street from Neon. We've got, 2 blocks down from us is the Satori Village,
Hmm.
which is,
Tim
Tim
Bailey.
Bailey. That's
Hmm.
a $60 million project.
Hmm.
We had Juxtaposition that was, remodeled, and they got a new building. And then we had the Capri that was, that's a new building. And then we have, folks doing stuff on up on Lowry and 42nd and up there. We got Camden Town with Houston White and
Hmm.
his team. We've got Anissa Keys and her work, and then we got on the east side of, I shouldn't say east side, but the more east side of North Minneapolis on West Broadway, we have Dr. Childs and and Wendell Maddox and their projects. And then we have, Jamez Staples down on Plymouth.
Hmm.
So, I mean, all these investments are coming now. And so it's just an extraordinary thing. We had Kenny McKnight redoing the Zara.
Hmm.
So we've got all this investment coming in. These are Black entrepreneurs intentionally invest in this community. And so that's extraordinary. It's not outside folks. It's the community itself staying here and investing here. I think that's exceptional. I don't know where that's being done other places, but it's being done here.
Why now and why not before? I remember, I don't, you knew Beck Horton, right?
Yeah, Lubeck.
So Beck was a pioneer from my point of view when he decided to create, uh, was it Microtron
Yeah.
on Washington Avenue, and I heard Beck speak because back then the question was how do we create transportation systems that get our people from North Minneapolis out to the suburbs where the jobs are, and the presumption was that jobs and development and economic activity would not take place in North Minneapolis, and that the best thing that we could have for ourselves as a solution was easy access to where that robust, siting of development and jobs would be.
Hmm.
And Beck, I think, said, look, why don't we bring the jobs into North Minneapolis?
Right.
Let's create places where our people can work. Beck did that along with brother Charles Thompson at Community Electronics.
Hmm.
And there were others back then that were the first wave, I think, of entrepreneurship or manufacturing in particular in North Minneapolis. I think Alt was part of that as well.
Yes.
So talk
Fred
about
Green.
talk
Yeah.
about that era, what the hope and the promise were, and what happened from that time to what feels like a new move, a new movement, and the fulfillment of an initial impulse. What do you think?
Well, you're right to point out what Beck has done. Beck was extraordinary. I think he went to science fair when he was in high school or something. So Beck was very talented. I think he worked at Honeywell. Then he went off on his own and created eventually Microtron.
Hmm.
Um, and so, you know, Beck had the right vision. I mean, he was willing to invest in North Minneapolis. He wanted to create jobs,
Hmm.
and he did it. And
Hmm.
so, we're standing on Beck's shoulders. I mean, Beck was on my board when I was at Meter,
Hmm.
and so all the work that he did was huge and remains huge. And then also, as you pointed out, Alt with Fred Green
Hmm.
and his work. And so, yeah, those folks were pioneers. Beck led the charge. Um, his company, yeah, I think his first company was Juno. That's what it was. And
Hmm.
so Juno was successful, and then he brought Microtron into North Minneapolis to create jobs. So that he's an excellent example of doing that. And the key was in manufacturing. And then, actually, I also want to point out that Stair Step, Babington,
Hmm.
had worked out a deal with General Mills, and they brought in I'm trying to remember the name,
Cieza.
Cieza.
Cieza. Yeah.
So they were doing food manufacturing at that
Hmm.
time, and that was a big deal as well. So there've been, I would say, lots of embers that have been, started, and folks that have created those opportunities. And so there's a legacy of this kind of work. I think what you have now is we have more folks that I think have capacity that we
Mhm.
didn't have before. I think you have, there's more of a groundswell of that. So I mean, there was, there was Bex, Fred, and Fred is actually helping Dr. Childs today.
Okay.
Um, so he's still, that kind of, the benefits of
Network.
that are still there. And
Mhm.
so, but you have now more of a groundswell of that. There's more folks that have the capacity, have the vision, and also attract and are able to attract resources to do it, which we didn't have in those days. So that's a big step forward that we didn't have then, that we do have now. And there's also more resources coming into the community. I think with this past legislative session, I want to give a shout out to Senator Bobby Joe Champion,
Yep.
who did something that's absolutely extraordinary. Um, I'm going to tell you that he got major dollars devoted to not just North Minneapolis, but to the underserved communities. I would say North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and St. Paul. But a good portion of that comes to North Minneapolis. It's coming through Neighborhood Development Center and META, but he got that done, and I think
Mhm.
that legislation is absolutely extraordinary. And he needs to be applauded for his leadership in doing that. He made it happen. He's the president of the Senate now, and he's used that role, hallelujah, to really help the community. It's just exceptional. I think other people around the country are looking at what has been done through this legislative session, with the kind of leadership that Senator Champion has demonstrated.
Well, that's amazing, and I think you're spot on in laying the credit at his feet. He would not take it. He would say he was part of a team, including people like Representative Agbaje and Representative Fooley and other members of the legislature. But I think you are right in saying we need to give credit and shout out Senator Bobby Joe Champion, a North Sider, again, for taking the leadership and pulling a system that produces resources for our community in ways that we haven't before. Warren, I look at, I live on Thomas Avenue in North Minneapolis. I've lived here since '73. So
Okay.
I drive up and down Plymouth Avenue every day to my office down next door to where Tim is building on Bryant Avenue, North Minneapolis, where Tim Baylor is building the Satori Village project.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that when I drive up and down Plymouth Avenue once or twice a day, every day,
Mhm.
I just continue to be encouraged. And I'm
Mhm.
encouraged by looking at the magnificent building that Richard Copeland initiated, and that
Oh yeah,
Babington and brother
David McGee. Yeah,
McGee are holding down at, and that's we call it the Thor building. It has a
yeah,
different name. It's a
yeah,
regional center.
yeah.
But the Thor building, I look across the street at what Stella uh, Whitney West is doing
Right.
in building this phenomenal campus
Yeah,
for health
yeah,
and wellness and well-being for
yeah,
North Point Health and Wellness. I remember the extraordinary work that Clarence Hightower did in bringing on a $6 million facility on that corner for the
yeah.
Urban League, right?
Yes,
And I
yes.
have to applaud what the Estes family has done, creating this new uh, uh, funeral service and chapel. And so
Yep.
I see all this, and then Urok is there.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember when it was the strip mall
It was a
and
strip mall.
Lucille's Kitchen and the grocery store and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
phone center?
King's Supermarket used to be there.
Kings, yeah, Kings was there, and J.C. Clark Pharmacy, and
Yeah,
Coast to Coast, and
yeah,
Staten Liquors. But all that stuff has emerged now,
yeah.
and even the houses that were built on Plymouth Avenue by the two partners that were in Molar Construction
Okay.
ended up being developers, and that
Yeah.
was one of my brother's names. You know who I mean? The two guys that built Plymouth Avenue residential facility. But Plymouth is beautiful. It really
Yeah.
is,
Mhm.
and there's still a lot of vacant land, a lot of room to grow and to
Yeah.
go. So
Yeah.
so I think that kind of amplifies what you're saying about the opportunity at hand. What do we need to do to seize the moment? I think we have. but there's more that can be done. And what are you doing? What's Neon doing to facilitate the most aggressive forward movement for economic building, wealth building in our community?
Okay. Before I do that, I actually do want to give a shout out to Representative Agbaji and Representative Fuli. Representative Agbaji actually authored our bill in the House
Mhm.
for this commercial kitchen and food incubator. So I definitely want to give a shout out to her and her leadership on that
Good,
as well.
good.
And then Representative Fuli is also the chairman of the Capital Committee for the House, and I want to applaud him for his leadership as well. So I don't want to give short shrift to them because they also were huge
Yeah,
in making this happen as well.
yeah,
So thank
yeah.
you for pointing that out. In terms of our work, we have a Black Developers Fund that's exclusive for Black entrepreneurs, and it's designed to really, bring the vacant spaces in North Minneapolis, bring them back into utilization. So what we discovered a number of years ago that there was like 100 vacant properties. They were too small for the white developers, but the Black developers didn't have the resources to actually access and build on those particular properties. What we do now is the city has a program that reimburses you if you get the development going. The
Hmm.
problem with that is, though, that many of the developers don't have the upfront capital
Hmm.
to support that development or to actually get it done. So what we do is we fronted them the money, as long as we know that the city will take us out.
Hmm.
And there are projects that are, they're typical. I mean, I could say to you that we've done some extraordinary work in that area. I mean, there's some folks that, they don't have the typical credit scores that would be required to get stuff done. But we are not looking at the credit scores as much as we're looking at the source of repayment. And usually, if we
Hmm.
have a city, someone saying guaranteeing a repayment, we'll do it. And they may be difficult projects. So, in fact, often all of them are. I should say all of them. Most of them are challenging, to say the least. But anyway, we're trying to encourage that kind of development. We're trying to get these entrepreneurs to be successful in this, and as they, do a two or three projects, then they become skilled at it, and they
Hmm.
can take on more of those opportunities.
And so list some of the examples that you can do, without breaking confidences. Are there any projects that signify or reflect this opportunity that you care to
Um,
bring up? And if not, I understand.
well, I can't reveal,
Yeah.
specific names, but I can tell you one project that um, we got a call from the city on a Saturday
Hmm.
saying, "Can you help?"
Hmm.
Saturday, okay,
Hmm.
not a Monday, not a Tuesday, not a Friday,
Saturday.
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 Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Here's a project. Can you guys do anything? So we looked at the project and we said, "Well, let's see." So what we discovered is the contractor had a project that was half finished, and the contractor that the developer had a project that was half finished. The contractor that he was working with was subpar.
Hmm.
And so what he found is that the contractor was billing him for things where the work wasn't completed or it was shoddy workmanship.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so as he went to the contractor, to deal with him on that, then he stopped hearing from him. So the guy abandoned the project in the middle of it. And so the question is, who's going to do this? Well, nobody's going to do that. I mean,
Hmm.
the banks wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I mean, just
Hmm.
they wouldn't touch that. So we said, if the city will support us, we'll help. We'll give them we'll lend them the money. So we found a new contractor. We vetted the contractor,
Hmm.
so we knew that he could execute. Once we did that, we then funded him the money, and then we got a bank to take us out.
Ah.
And the bank at some point balked a little bit. We said, no, you agreed. and we anyway got the project done. The bank took us out. It was a $200,000 project. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
Okay.
great. Uh, Mike V is one of our regular listeners. He's joining us from out east. I think he said we need more technology impact labs in predominantly Black neighborhoods to create the DEI that aligns with our interests and our building. And we need building technology that creates the collective wealth that our community needs. So thank you, Mike V, for that observation. Care to respond to that, Warren?
I agree with him. That's why we're elevating technology. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we want to make sure one of the things that we want to do is change the culture in our community.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but most of our young people are focused on athletics. They want to be the next, you know, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Steph
Mm-hmm.
Curry. I mean, those are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be the next in football, Larry Fitzgerald, because he came from here, so he's a Northsider,
Right. Right.
and others. Um, but the chances of that are slim. Okay. And then, or they want to be the next rapper. They want to be the next Prince.
Yeah.
Prince is, that's a unique talent.
Yeah.
I think Prince is representative of the creativity that we have in North Minneapolis, but it's not limited to music.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then we don't aspire to STEM, and it's because I don't think we've seen enough examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to change the culture to say we need to be good at technology. We need to, we have the opportunity to be as as strong and as effective as anybody in that area. But I think that it's something that's not been lifted up.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever's in front of you on a constant basis begins to change your perception of what can be done. And so what we also want to change is people's belief system. And
Mm-hmm.
our belief system is, well, and I hate to say this, but I will say it, is that sometimes education is not viewed in as positive light as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the kids that are smart are sometimes, criticized for that in their communities.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not, we need to value that intellectual capacity and ability. That's a skill. We have technology, all the folks that is the wealthiest folks in the world now, all technology guys. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Tesla, you know, Bill Gates. I mean, they're all technology guys. Apple now is $1 trillion company, $1 trillion in terms of market value. That's technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we have the same capacity to play in that arena as anybody else. I mean, one of the people you could look back on historically is George Washington Carver, who created 300 uses for the peanut. 300 uses for the peanut at you know at Tuskegee Institute with very little laboratory equipment. He just did it. Me also, I mean, he heard from God, so he learned. But I'm saying the important thing is that that ability and that capacity does exist. We got a history of doing it. I
Mm-hmm.
went back and looked at some of the history of the things that some of the black enclaves had created. And there was a Black Wall Street in Tulsa, but there's also Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And they were skilled carpenters. They were skilled, masons. Skilled. They were skilled. And so, and today we find that few and far between. But we have that capacity, and I think that we ought to continue to do that. Now, going back to technology, I think STEM and technology is something that we can embrace. And one of the
Yeah.
things that we tried to do at Neon at one time, about 3 or 4 years ago, was we were trying to do an esports thing because we knew that our kids were really good at gaming.
Yep.
Okay, and that's something that we could highlight and something that we thought would, number one, create an interest in that. Number one, number two, they could create jobs. They could be stellar in that, which they are,
Mm-hmm.
and then also they create opportunities for themselves and get great jobs. They have that capacity. They're very skilled at high technology. You know, so
And so the key now is simply to turn it into business opportunity, to
absolutely
acclimate these young and curious and gifted minds, not only to pursue their gift of awareness, understanding their interest, which is deep, and
right,
their propensity to innovate, to look at
absolutely
what it is and to see what it could be, and to create new ideas, new programs, new applications for technology. That capability simply needs to both be recognized and nurtured and promoted as the standard. That should be the norm, not the exception. Right now, we look at that, and you are so right, Warren, in examining or saying that we have to challenge this counterweight of
Yep.
our kids feeling like they're going to be ostracized if they show how smart they are,
hmm
and the peer pressure of not being productive, not being smart. So it's good that we talk about it, but we have to also develop a way, a system, a practice of creating and using a vocabulary that focuses on and delivers that language, that understanding about technology, our place in it, our ownership of it, and our use of it for our development, with the idea that our development is really the development for all of our country, for all of humanity. So let me jump around a little bit, Warren McLean, and ask you, and you've said this already, but have you say it in different ways maybe? What do you think are some of the effective strategies for fostering economic growth and development in what we have called marginalized neighborhoods? You've described one, and that is having a city that is willing to support opportunity. You've also described having political leadership and clout in the form of Senator Bobby Joe Champion, president of the Minnesota Senate, and two important and powerful members of the House, Fu Lee and Esther Agbaje, and the roles they play. And with that in place, what else do we need to accelerate economic growth and development in marginalized neighborhoods in general, but our neighborhood in particular?
Well, the other thing we need is, I would say willing corporate partners.
Mm.
Um, let's take Richard Copeland
Mhm.
and Thor Construction as an example.
Mhm.
When I was at Meta, um, Richard was able to scale, and the way he was able to scale is Bob Battle at the time was the commissioner of human rights in St. Paul,
Mm.
and Bob came up with a program where he wanted to pair minority general contractors, and particularly black contractors, with majority contractors. And so he came up with this vision, and he at the time presented it to Norm Coleman, who was mayor at that time, and Norm bought it. So then Bob calls me at like 4:30 in the afternoon on Monday, said I got a project. He said, and will you guys take it on? And I said, well, what is it? And he says, well, I want to do this majority partnership pairing. And he said, and I need a decision by tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So, I got back to him, said yes. The next morning, this was Monday. Tuesday, I said yes. Wednesday, we're in Mayor Coleman's office.
Mm.
And then Mayor Coleman says to me, Warren, I'm behind this program. I just don't want any failures. So we worked together. Norm, put his deputy commissioners on it. Anyway, let's just say we fostered a partnership between Thor and Mortensen,
Mhm.
and they built the Excel Center. They
Yep.
built the Science Museum.
Yep.
They built, in Sharon Sells Belton on her leadership, they built the Minneapolis Convention Center. All that helped Thor scale. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there are a couple things that happened. Number one, there was a partnership
Mhm.
because that helped them transfer knowledge. But Richard wasn't a sub. He was a general contractor.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of opportunities created for the subs as well,
Mhm.
because Richard had a heart for the community. But you also had the city owned the jobs, so they determined who won. So they could scale because the requirement was you need to have a serious partnership with a minority contractor as a general, not as a
Mhm.
sub.
Right.
Okay. So So I'm saying there that the position there is the collaboration that allows folks to scale, and I
Mhm.
think that can happen in the private sector as well. But that's an excellent example of helping that company
Well,
really
right
scale.
now, I think in the city of Minneapolis, the majority of the city council is a caucus of people of color,
Yeah,
if I'm correct.
yeah,
And what does that mean? What does it do? So you've got the head of the Senate, you've got a governor that's number one, both articulating and delivering on a promise of policies that are restorative, that are corrective, right? That are inclusive. So the governor is setting the standard, I believe, and then his team, including the other executive members, Keith Ellison,
yeah,
Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, that crew is all focused on a vision of inclusion for the state of Minnesota. And they've got some appointments in different departments
yeah,
of the state where people are actually executing on the vision.
yeah,
Then you have electeds like Bobby Joe and
yeah,
Esther
yeah,
and Fu Lee.
yeah,
And now you've got a city council in Minneapolis that as a majority of people of color, it's unusual.
yeah,
And you've got some new presence now on the county board, both in Hennepin County and in Ramsey County. So some conditions are significantly different,
mhm,
you know. And my point of view, Warren McLean, is that one of the expectations that we should have of the people that we elect that serve us is that they continue to do all they can to open the door to opportunity, as you described what Mayor Coleman did at the behest of uh, uh, Brother Battle. And so, can more of that happen now? Is more of it happening now? What can we expect? And how do we mobilize, educate our community to push that, to accelerate it even more? Because it's the public expectation. I call it, how do we create a public mind, which allows us to see ourselves differently, to define ourselves in a way, in language that is entrepreneurial and that is wealth focused and ethical and moral at the same time.
yeah. I think i- people in leadership roles, um, like Bob had the ear of the mayor. I
Mhm.
think that we have other people who are in those roles, and number one, have the vision um, to think like that. That's important. Bob probably gets no credit for what he did.
Mhm.
So, but there are people in those roles and they have that opportunity, and I think they need to have a big voice.
Mhm.
They need to not be silent, but I think they need to be vocal about what the opportunity is, and where they have influence. I think they need to exercise it.
Mhm.
That opportunity is there. I mean, I think that um it's critical that people get behind things. We're running a campaign now. It's called Grow and Thrive campaign, and the chair of our campaign, his name is James Pierce. And James spent 30 years at Cargill company in high tech. I mean, in information technology. So he was the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, and then he went to another organization called Salo. But James embraced uh, our Grow and Thrive campaign, and he has relationships with the corporate community, and he introduced us and helped support us. And so now we have, Doug Baker who's a former CEO of Ecolab, and
Mhm.
David Mortensen, who is, the chairman and CEO of Mortensen, as part of our campaign. And he was influential in bringing them on board. So I mean, it's just that kind of leadership that's really important. And James used his position to do that. I mean, he's also close to the for, uh, former chair at Cargill. I mean, they're friends.
Yeah.
So he uses that position to promote our work and the things that are happening at Neon. And I think people in those roles have that opportunity, and they need to be vocal about it. And James was vocal about it. So I'm just
Well,
saying that that opportunity does exist, and people in those positions need to exercise that, need to use that position and authority as an opportunity for them to promote the community and the work in the community.
Are some hesitant? And if they are, why? And what can we do to help remove hesitancy and to encourage, confidence where it ought to be used to deliver to our community?
You know, some are hesitant. I don't know which ones are. I mean,
Yeah.
some are hesitant because they want to protect their role. They think if they too forceful, it might compromise them. So
Mhm.
that's self-preservation may be in there. But if you're talented, which they are, because they
Hmm.
wouldn't be in those roles, um, they have an opportunity to be vocal. Another
Hmm.
example of that is Greg Cunningham.
Hmm.
Greg
Yep.
is pushing things at U.S. Bank. He has a Black Advisory Committee. It's called the Access Advisory Committee, but it's basically all Black leaders
Hmm.
who meet on a quarterly basis to inform U.S. Bank about what should be done in the community. And Greg put that committee together. He reports directly to Andy Searcy, uh, CEO of U.S. Bank,
Yes. Hmm.
and so he has the chairman's there, and the chairman has been at our committee meetings. So it's serious. And so, but he's another example of someone who's using his position to advance things in North Minneapolis. And in fact, U.S. Bank has two locations around the country that they're pouring resources in. One is North Minneapolis. The other one's going to be in California.
Hmm.
Okay, and this is a multi-year, it's a 10-year commitment that I think they're making. Okay, so they're going to pour resources into North Minneapolis. They've done it once before in Chicago in the Pullman neighborhood. They're going to do it now in North Minneapolis. Well, Greg made that decision happen. Okay, he chose the location. So, he needs to get huge credit for that. But he's an example of someone who's taken his role and really using it to benefit the community.
I think it's also important that you mention, Warren, some of the companies that have responded, and my idea is that give them credit
Yeah.
for stepping up to the plate and supporting, engaging, responding in ways that deliver benefit for our community. So you might want to, give some shout outs to some of your supporters or companies that you think exemplify the proper response that benefits both the company, its product, its brand, and the community. Are there some that stand out to you?
Well, you certainly got to give credit to Target. I mean, Target is working with Houston White, developing his brand. I mean, Houston is going to be, I don't know, all over the country with his work. I mean, that's extraordinary. And they're serious about that partnership. I think Houston and Brian Cornell have a personal relationship. I mean, it just tells you that the CEO is committed. I think when Brian got some CEO award, Houston was one of the speakers.
Mm.
Okay, so that indicates, the seriousness of that relationship.
Hmm.
So he's a great example of, Target's a great example of doing that. General Mills, a phenomenal partner. They've been a great partner to Neon. Last year we put on a what do you call it? Uh, what's that day? Um, it'll come back to me. But anyway, we put on this event together that they
Hmm.
that they hosted
Mm.
at their campus, and they chose 12 to 14 of our entrepreneurs. We put on the whole day together, and it was phenomenal. And they're very committed partners. I mean,
Hmm.
they put together a number of teams to work with our clients. That's been phenomenal. So I definitely want to give a shout out to them and their work. So that's those are two stellar examples
Great.
of corporations stepping up to the plate. And I also want to give a shout out to Cub. I mean, they stayed in North Minneapolis. They didn't have to.
Cub Foods.
Yeah, Cub
Yeah.
Foods. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not working with them specifically, but I want to give them credit
Hmm.
for staying in the community. They
Hmm.
could have abandoned the community like everybody else, and they had an excuse. We had obviously the civil unrest.
Right.
Their store got damaged, but they didn't leave. They stayed here and supported the community, and I want to give them credit for that. So those are examples of folks that are really committed. I mean, there are others I'm obviously probably leaving out,
Sure.
but
Sure. Sure.
and
But
I,
those are good examples.
those are good
Warren, let me
examples.
switch for the last 10 minutes here and talk about Warren McLean,
Okay.
your training, your study, reflect, if you would, on the 5-year-old Warren McLean. Think back on who that child was and how you looked at the world, and the family that you were in and the place that you were in, and how your dreaming began as you remember it, and how you, in retrospect, see things then that set you on path for where you are today.
5 years old, man. Gee. Well, first of all, I grew up in the projects in Harlem. And so, in fact, my project was one of the oldest in the country. It's called Harlem River Houses. It was on, if anybody knows anything about New York City, it used to be called right off of 7th Avenue, which is now called Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. It's not far from, if you folks are familiar with basketball at all, the Rucker tournament is played like 6 blocks away on 155th Street. So um, it's just, that was where I grew up. Uh, grow up in the projects was, at that time it was just fun. I mean, in terms of, there was kids all around. Uh, as I used to use, I like to use this term, was a constant din of activity. Uh, my family, you know, I would just like to say my parents were hard workers. My mother worked as a chambermaid in a hotel. She did that for many years, 30 plus years. My father was a baggage checker at Greyhound. He did that for 30 plus years. So they had a very strong work ethic. And they particularly were emphasized education. My mother used to say to me, if you could, if you're qualified, you can do anything. And so she said, you need to have the right education, and she emphasized that. So, I mean, whenever there were school conferences, they always went.
Mhm.
So, they were parents that were definitely involved in my education in particular, and so that was really important to them. And they placed a high value on it. And I got the message. So,
Where were they from? Were they native New Yorkers, or what's your lineage? What's the genealogy?
my mother's from South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. Actually, Johns Island, South Carolina, which is a little, rural area that was not right next to Charleston. My father's from, I won't say Raleigh. He's from Sanford, North Carolina, and so they used to tease each other. My mother used to call him a Tar Heel. Anyway, uh, so they're both from the South. They came up to New York City. They migrated to New York City, but they, like I said, they were both very hard workers, and I mean, and they worked to work early. So my mother and father probably left for work at 6:30 or 7 in the morning. And they were there. In fact, my father started at 7, so that means he left at 6:30 or something to take subway down to
Hmm.
his place. And and then actually he got me a job there for 2 summers working there, so that was helpful to me as well. I mean, I really learned hard work doing that because you're lifting bags off of buses, and it's a challenging job.
Sure.
But anyway, you appreciate it. But the thing that they instilled in me was a work ethic. That was the most important thing, and then vision. You know, my, my mother actually bought a house. Okay,
Mhm.
and we were in the projects, and one of the things of the projects you couldn't have, if your kids reached a certain age, and my brother was about to turn 18 or so, they had a limit on income or how many residents could be in a place. And
Mhm.
once your sibling reached a certain age, then your rent increased or you had to move.
Okay.
And so my mother one day was crying, and I was like wondering why. And it was because of this, that they sent her notice, hey, your son's about to be 18, he's about to leave. And so that bothered her. So she saved money to buy a house. And she bought a house. She saved up 10 grand. The house was $20,000. She put up a 50% down payment.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
In those days. But she had
Yeah.
saved her money. We did get the house. We got a 2-family house. But I learned something from that. She had me count the money. Okay, I'm in the 6th grade, 7th grade, and I'm counting this money, and it's 10 grand. And this is 1967. This is 10 grand from someone in Harlem who worked as a chambermaid, which meant that
Mm,
anything was possible.
mm.
Okay, and so anyway, that marked me because I saw that she didn't let that stop her. She had a vision. You know, it was just helpful in seeing that and knowing that things were possible. So for me, that marked me and saying, you know, this could be done. And so that was really helpful. Again, they were very, very, again, they had a very strong work ethic. So that was really important to me. My mother used to brag about working 6 days a week.
Hmm.
You know, she thought, you know,
How did you set your path on finance and accounting and bookkeeping and the money profession?
well, you know, when I graduated from an undergraduate school, I learned about this program called the Consortium for Graduate Study in Management. And so I applied and I won a fellowship at the time, but it's a scholarship. And um, and so I figured that, you know, you could probably learn marketing at a company, but I was concerned that if you didn't understand finance, um, that would be difficult to learn. You know, and I wanted to learn it in a classroom. I mean, I wanted to learn, get the familiar what's required to be successful in the financial arena. And my
Hmm.
undergraduate degree was in economics, so I decided, hey, finance would, you know, would really be helpful for me, that I could use it at any time and forever. So
Hmm. Listen, Warren, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me for the hour. I want to take the last minute here to ask you to invite people to the upcoming conversation. And anything else you want to say, here's the time to do it.
okay. Well, certainly I want to invite everybody to our community conversation on August 30th. It starts at 4 o'clock. Hopefully, people will come by 3:30 or 3:45, so you're seated. It's going to be a great conversation. These three individuals, I think, are extraordinary. You're going to hear things that I'm sure I've never heard before, because some of it I know I haven't heard before. So, and I know the work that they're doing. It's just phenomenal, and they haven't gotten the attention, um, that's been afforded others. I think there's an opportunity to elevate that and see what the possibilities are for our community, which I think are extraordinary. I think these are exceptional individuals. They're very talented. We are very blessed to have them in our community, and they're focused, trying to help right here in North Minneapolis. So that's fabulous. So,
Warren, thank you so much. Warren McLean, president of Northside Economic Opportunity Network, NEON. Great work, great conversation. Well, we're going to close with a reminder again from our friends at the health department. Remember that COVID is not over. The pandemic is declared over, but we still need to pay attention and to do what it takes to understand that the risk still exists. So let's continue to follow the COVID-19 protocols, washing your hands, staying aware, prioritizing prevention. Together, we can create awareness, we can encourage testing, and help everyone stay healthy. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time. I'm Al McFarlane.